It's 2024, and it's time for my presidential candidate. Hi everyone, and welcome to 2024, and the first video of the year, and probably one of the only ones for a while. Now, in case you're new to the channel, I have a little tradition where at the beginning of every single year, I make a tier list video of all the movies that I watched. I'm still working on a way to somehow incorporate TV shows into that, and I still keep a list of it, but I haven't figured it out this year. This year, I made an effort to watch more movies than I do normally, and it seems to have worked out because last year I watched over 40 movies. 40 new movies, I should say. This isn't counting the ones that I watched that didn't come out this year. I did watch them all in different orders than what they are here. This is the release order. I'm going to be ranking them in release order so that it's more easily organized. But this is not necessarily in what order I actually watched these movies in. So, you know, if I say anything that's like, oh, I watched this movie before this, blah, 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 and that happened after, that's why. All right, without much further ado, we should probably just head right on into it. Starting out pretty strongly, we have Megan, or Mithrigan. This movie was a lot of fun, actually. It wasn't as fun as I was hoping it would be based off the trailer, but as far as like a Blumhouse movie goes, you can never really expect something like really high quality usually, unless you have like some exceptions like Get Out or whatever. This one was that, but it was also got such a fun little concept and great performances, or really one big performance from the actress who played Megan. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed it, and it was a really decent way to start off the year. Wasn't amazing, so I'll probably put it in like a I don't know, probably like a A or B. I'll say B. Solid B tier. After that, we had another kind of semi-horror-ish movie, which was the movie Missing. If you've ever seen the movie Searching, which came out about 5 years ago, it's kind of a spiritual sequel to that. It's made by the same people. Both Searching and Missing are movies that take place almost entirely with a screen recording of one person's computer. They managed to incorporate that by having like having FaceTime incorporation, or having location data, just security cameras. It's a kind of new age version of found footage. If you've ever seen the Unfriended movies, it's kind of like that, although a lot more elaborate. It's a shame that a lot of these movies aren't usually very good because they have a lot of potential. And I think that Missing and Searching are movies that actually fulfill that potential in a way that makes it interesting and really adds to the medium being used. And also, it's just like a really compelling movie. It's not the most original thing in the world outside of the framing device, but the story itself is entertaining and it is gripping. So that's a win in my book. I'd say it's probably like a lower A tier, but still A tier, so A tier it goes. Up next, we have M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin, which was a movie that I only watched because I could watch it for free, and it was something to spend the time. It was weird. I will say, Dave Bautista in this gives like the performance of a lifetime. He is great in this, and it's pretty clear that he is trying to break out of the mold that he's in, of the just like big beefy guy who is usually like some kind of comic relief of some kind. He wants to do more dramatic roles, and I think he does a great job showcasing his actual acting talent in this movie. That's mostly my main takeaway, because otherwise this movie is kind of forgettable, and also the ending's kind of weird. I won't spoil the ending because I know a lot of people who are really into like Shyamalanian twists or whatever, but this doesn't really have a huge Shyamalanian twist. It's just kind of an ending that's like got some weird implications. It feels like vaguely homophobic. Like, if you've seen the movie, you might know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's just me that feels that way, but it just feels weird how they decide to resolve the conflict. As a movie, it's fine. Like, there's good performances. It's like a mediocre script. It does a good job of using one set, but very mid, as the kids say. So C tier, I think. Here's a big one. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, first Marvel entry of the year, and probably the weakest. Not a huge surprise there. I don't think this movie is as extraordinarily shit as so many people seem to think it is. I remember when this movie first came out, and I saw people's reactions to it, and they were saying like, this is the worst movie Marvel has ever put out in years. They've fallen so far. This is like, you know, not a good movie. I'm not going to go there, but it's not out of the ordinary. It just feels like it's a little bit on the lower end. Like, it feels on the same tier as something like Thor 2 or Iron Man 2, a lot of 2s. It has some interesting beats to it. I really like how they portray Hank Pym's character. He's been kind of treated poorly in the past other Ant-Man movies. And There is one actor in it who gives an excellent performance, but I don't feel like giving that actor any kind of credit for a real life reasons. I don't know. It's like, it's not great. It feels a little bit generous putting it in C, but I think as far as like just fine stuff goes, I think C is an alright. It's like lower C tier. So after that we have Scream 6, a movie that I very much enjoyed. A lot of people were not big fans of the movie that this was immediately a sequel to, Scream 5 or Scream 2022. I enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed this one a lot more, to be honest, though. It takes the franchise in an interesting direction by like shuffling things around and adding a new spin on the formula, and has some genuinely pretty scary action sequences, some pretty gripping and nail-biting sequences, as it were. The performances are all great in the movie, particularly Melissa Barrera, who I felt gave kind of a muted performance in the last movie, but in this one she really upped her game, and I was a really big fan of that. The only thing I will say is that it is a shame that they're just not gonna make a 7th movie, I guess. And for some strange reason, I don't think I will be hearing any news of a 7th one, or even be seeing a 7th version of the story. At least that's done by the studio that's doing it right now. Probably like a tier. It's in a similar tier as Missing. The movie itself, outside of any kind of outside factors, I think it's deserving of that spot. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This was a big one. I was quite excited for this one because I am a fan of Dungeons & Dragons. I won't say I'm a D&D player necessarily because it's been a long time since I have done a D&D campaign. But from what I remember, it was a very fun experience, and it was something that really brings people together in a new and interesting ways. And I feel like the movie kind of captured the unique spirit that you have when playing a D&D game. I saw some people that are upset that this movie was kind of a comedy and that they didn't take the lore too seriously, which to me feels like they just are people who are interested in the lore and also are the worst kind of players to play with because they want everyone to take everything 100% seriously. D&D is just not a game where you do that. And if it wasn't for the existence of The Legend of Vox Machina, I would say this is probably the best representation of a D&D campaign that we've ever gotten on screen. And also it's just a fun movie. It's sad it didn't make a lot of its money back, but I did hear that its merchandise sales got a lot of money, so who knows, maybe we'll see a new one. I hope so. This movie deserves it. It's probably also going to be in A tier. Maybe like a lower A tier. Nothing like too crazy, but it's definitely in A territory. The Super Mario Bros. Movie. Probably Illumination's best movie, I'd say, which I know isn't really saying a lot, but it's also not saying anything too out of the ordinary. I think Illumination gets a lot of shit, and some of it is deserved because, you know, they don't make amazing movies necessarily, but I do feel like there's a bit of a hate cult almost around disliking Illumination as violently as some people do. Like, they just make fine movies, and that's what they made here. They made a fine movie. Surprisingly, Chris Pratt did all right. Wasn't expecting him to do amazingly, and he didn't do amazingly, but he didn't do terribly either, which is something. The other voice actors were much better. Obviously, the standout is Jack Black as Bowser, but then Charlie Day was also great, and I think Keegan-Michael Key did a good job with Toad. Weirdly enough, Anya Taylor-Joy was probably the worst performance, which I was not expecting. But I guess some even great actors can be uncomfortable or unexperienced with voice acting, so it makes sense. I think the best part about this movie is the animation. The animation looks gorgeous. It really invokes the color of the Super Mario games in a way that another movie adaptation hasn't. I feel like as a Mario movie, they probably did the best they could, unless they decided to do something like surprisingly turning it around into a really meaningful epic, like in a Lego movie kind of way. But if they're just going for like Mario-ish, it's fine. I think it's probably going to be a B tier. B for Bowser, Jack Black's Bowser. It's fine, but I enjoyed myself, and I would probably not mind watching it again if someone else was watching it with me. All right, the Nick Cage Dracula movie, Renfield. This is the Nick Cage Dracula movie. It's the movie where Nick Cage is Dracula. And if you're coming for Nick Cage as Dracula, you probably will not be disappointed. He's not in it as much as you would think if it was a Nick Cage Dracula movie, which officially it isn't, because it's about Renfield. Dracula is just another character who happens to be in it. I can't remember his name. I think it's Nicholas Hoult, who plays Renfield, does an excellent job in this as well. It's a pretty funny movie. It's also got some of the most over-the-top and low-budget gore I've ever seen in a movie. It gets to the point where it just like gets so insane that it loops around to being like cartoonish in a way. And I can tell that that's what they're going for, because they hired Nick Cage to play Dracula. It's fun. It's a fun little romp. I really enjoyed it. It's not an amazing movie. I feel like if they cut out Aquafina-ness, probably would have felt a lot tighter. If they focused on the Renfield and Dracula stuff, I think, which was the real strength of the movie. As is, it's a fun time. Probably another B tier. All right, up onto a very different type of movie. Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster. Man, where do I begin with this movie? I absolutely loved this movie. I don't know if it's actually good or not. It was funny, especially like the first like 40 minutes of it are really funny. It kind of slows down in the middle. I feel like the middle hour or so, and honestly parts of the ending I probably could have been cut out too. Like, it very much feels like an Ari Aster movie in a way that feels like more unfocused, but I don't know if that's a bad thing necessarily. I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird movie. It's not like Hereditary or Midsummer. Like, if you're going in expecting Hereditary or Midsummer, you're gonna be disappointed. But it is something. Like a lot of Ari Aster movies, it's not really for the faint of heart. It's got some wacky shit in it. I heard someone's call it like a 3-hour panic attack, and it kind of does feel like that. It's a weird movie in like the most true sense of the word. I don't know. I don't know if I'd watch it again, probably just to like understand what the hell is going on with it. But I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and probably put it in like a B tier as well, B for Beau, because I did really enjoy myself watching it. It was a real time. Peter Pan and Wendy, the newest live-action Disney remake, or not the newest, but one of the newest. I made a video about this one, if you could see. I don't know. It's a live-action remake of Peter Pan. I'm not sure why it's called Peter Pan and Wendy, because Wendy isn't really more part of this than she used to be. There's a lot of weird stuff about like making Captain Hook a tortured villain with a tragic backstory. There's some child acting in this that isn't awesome. Like I said, I made a whole video about it, but it doesn't really have a lot of redeeming qualities, because cinematography is kind of flat, acting is kind of flat, story is kind of flat. It's just a very flat movie. I don't really like saying that something needs to justify its existence, but this one, it doesn't really give itself a reason to exist. Like, it doesn't really say anything new, I guess. Probably put it in a D tier, just because like there's nothing really there for me to look at, nothing for me to grab onto. On a very different note, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the conclusion to James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. Man, I really loved this movie. Like, it's kind of funny that Marvel, in terms of the movie department, went from Quantumania right to this, because this was something that I just could not get enough of. It's such a good conclusion, and because you see how these characters over the past almost 10 years have evolved, how they've changed, and how their world has changed, and how James Gunn has matured. It's got probably the best villain in a comic book movie that I've ever seen, at least in the terms of acting and writing and making him feel like a real person, but also making him the most irredeemable bastard known to man, and selling that with an excellent performance by Chukwudi Adiju. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he's great. He's also great in Peacemaker, which is Gunn's DC show, and so hopefully that means that we'll see him in more projects, possibly in the DC universe that Gunn is working on. But this movie, I feel like it's probably going to be the best that Marvel is going to be for a while, at least in the movie department. It's probably going to be maybe the first S tier of the night. Throw caution to the wind. It's not a perfect movie. S tier is a little bit, it doesn't necessarily mean perfect, it just means really, really, really good. So, moving on to another superhero Marvel movie that came out this year, we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and the mid part of the trilogy that's going to be made, hopefully sometime within the next lifetime. There's just not a lot to say about this movie. The animation is like on another level. I got the art book for this movie for Christmas, and it's just wonderful seeing the craft that was put into this, how much passion and how much detail and how much thought is put into every single frame, kind of to the production's detriment if you read up about that behind the scenes. But the actual product itself is so wonderful, and it's written so well, and it's got such good performances, and like I said, the animation is just absolutely mind-blowing. This movie invigorates me artistically just by existing. Probably my favorite animated movie that I've ever seen, maybe, because WALL-E held that position for a long time. So obviously it's like a it's an S tier. There we go, S tier. S tier is pretty dominated by Marvel now, which is weird considering the year they've had. And speaking of S tier movies, we have Past Lives from A24. It's kind of in the almost the opposite direction of Spider-Man because it's a very simple movie. Really, the stakes are not high at all. And it feels like something that if you were cynical, you could say nothing happens in it. And like compared to most movies, yeah, nothing really happens. But one of the great tropes in storytelling is the what if, lost love almost. And this one shows a what if in the very literal sense of like these two people came this close to becoming like a couple and like living out their life that way, but they just don't. They don't end up going that way. And the movie doesn't end with them getting together. It's just exploring this idea of how these two people connected each other, and it's weirdly beautiful. It's hard to describe to someone who hasn't seen it, but this is like an incredibly beautiful movie in how simple it is. In telling that story, I think for that it deserves an S tier. Absolutely, A24 just has been killing it for a long time, even with some of their more interesting projects that came out this year that I haven't seen, so I can't really judge too much, but you know, there's something. Now we have Nimona from the remains of the studio formerly known as Blue Sky, now known as non-existent. I feel like I'm a broken record here, but this was another fun animated movie that involved ideas of LGBTQ representation, but also identity and belonging, and from what I could gather, a lot of trans coding. And it invoked those in a way that was very visceral and very obviously meaningful to someone like me who is a cisgendered man. Like, this year was great for animation because I feel like if Across the Spider-Verse had not come out, Nimona would have been my best animated movie of the year. It's got so much like charm to it, and it's got such a great cast of characters. It's got gay knights. Who doesn't want to see gay knights in a movie? And Nimona herself is an absolute ball of energy that just keeps you invigorated in the story all the way through. I heavily recommend it to anyone who loves like these fun little animated adventures kind of a thing. And it's also got like a really interesting futuristic medieval mixture aesthetic. I might put that one as another S tier because like I just can't think of anything wrong with this movie. So why not? All right, now we have Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. I really like Wes Anderson's style, not in like a way of like, oh, he's creating true art. He's a true artiste. But in just a way that like you see one of his movies and you instantly know that it's his. Like he has such a distinct style, such a distinct visual style that isn't necessarily groundbreaking, but it is really interesting to watch. It's really interesting to see that physical style be reimagined and reinterpreted and reapplied to a bunch of different stories and characters. My favorite of his is Fantastic Mr. Fox, but I feel like Asteroid City is weirdly like meta in a way that's interesting. I know it put a lot of people off, I could see, but it really spoke to me because it was commenting about the creation of art and the creation of art and like analyzing the creation of art. There's a lot of different layers and of stuff. It's a movie about a newscast, about a documentary, about a play, about a town. All those different layers, it does become a little bit confusing after a while, but it's very emotionally resonant in a way that is kind of hard to describe. If you're a fan of Wes Anderson's work and you haven't seen this one, I definitely recommend checking it out. Also, I'm just a fan of like mid-century retrofuturism kind of aesthetic, and this one has that like up the wazoo. So I feel like it's probably going to be like a A tier for Asteroid City. My list does skew positive because I tend to watch movies that I'm interested in watching, and I tend to like movies that I'm interested in watching. I don't really seek out movies that I'm not interested in watching all that much. So there are some exceptions, as you will see on this list. All right, Pixar's Elemental. I don't know. Pixar's Elemental is weird because watching it in real time is like watching it transform into a different movie over time. It starts out kind of bad, but then it like gets weirdly really good towards the end. There's like definitely like a transitionary piece. It doesn't feel like a sharp jolt or anything. It's such a weird experience. Like the last half hour to 45 minutes are like really great. I love the last half hour 45 minutes, but the beginning is pretty bleh. So I think it kind of evens out into just like an it's okay for me. The animation is probably the best part. Pixar has really like outdone themselves with some of the environments and some of the stuff in this world, but the actual world building as far as the script goes can be kind of hit or miss. That's not really a big deal normally, but it does kind of take you out of the movie a little bit. I think it's probably another B tier. It's whatever. All right, DC's The Flash. The Flash. No, not really a fan of The Flash. I think as just as a movie, just like purely just as a movie, it's okay. Like if you're looking at the script, if you're looking at the actual story, if you're looking at the story being told, like at best, it's okay. It's not the worst idea in the world. It's not the worst thing you could ever have. Because outside of a few kind of hilariously outlandish sequences like the infamous baby in a microwave scene, it doesn't really have a lot that's offensive about it necessarily. Until like the last 20 minutes when they start like CGI resurrecting the ghosts of dead actors with AI and deepfakes, which in a way that makes you very, very uncomfortable and makes you wonder if maybe like they shouldn't be doing this, you know, resurrecting dead people to be like a Twitter moment of like, that's the guy from that movie. Better get new rock stars to point out all the people in this scene. And to say nothing of the crimes that Ezra Miller has committed. And I haven't checked in on them, that situation, but I hope that they are seeking the help that they need. This movie kind of represents everything I don't like about superhero movies now. It's got overproduced and undercooked visual effects. It's got a ballooned budget. It relies so much on cameos of previous superhero properties like Michael Keaton's Batman. It just has this focus on reimbursing existing IP rather than doing something new with the story. And thinking about how this movie was in development hell for like 9 years makes me so sad, because this is the first movie that The Flash, who is a beloved comic book character, got, and it's just kind of this mess. Normally I don't really do this, but I feel like from a combination of all of the real life and internal issues with this movie, I feel like it's well deserving of its place in F tier. And now we've got something in every tier. Lucky us. Next movie is No Hard Feelings, starring Jennifer Lawrence and I believe Andrew Barth Feldman. When this movie first came out, I saw people like heralding it as like the return of 2000s edgy comedy. We need to make more movies like this now. I've watched it and I was kind of expecting some kind of raunch fest, but honestly, outside of like the premise and maybe like one or two scenes, it's not all that raunchy, especially compared to some of the shit they put out in the 2000s. Like, this is no scary movie or anything. This is just weirdly heartfelt for what it's going for. Like, obviously the premise is pretty messed up, but the movie does it in a way where it manages to acknowledge how messed up it is while also making everyone in the story a sympathetic and light-hearted character. It's something that I get. I get it. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it was just weird seeing people talk about it like it was something else. As an actual movie, I'd probably put it in like probably a B tier. Like high B tier. It's not quite A tier, but it's kind of up there. It's a little fun enjoyable time. Now for a comedy I much more appreciated, we have Theater Camp. I've mentioned it before on this channel, but you know, some of you might not know or may not have guessed from my general demeanor, but I was a theater kid in middle school and high school. I was in a lot of theater productions and I was in a theater camp myself. I was part of a summer theater production camp for a couple years, and so this movie was really funny to me. It's trying to be, it's a comedy, but it was something that in a way where I feel like most people who weren't a part of that experience wouldn't really get it quite as much. Like, I think there's still a lot to enjoy if you have no experience with theater, but if you're someone who grew up doing amateur or community theater in any kind of way, this will resonate with you so hard. It's got like some pacing issues and not all the jokes land, and I feel like some of the performances are a bit weak, but it feels like it really was a labor of love, and I absolutely love the mockumentary framing device when done well, and I feel like this was a case where it was done well. It's not really an S tier, I don't think, but it's definitely in the A tier, I would say. And now we get to the big event of this year, the big event that happened in movies, January 21st, aka Barbenheimer. So starting with Barbie of the Barbenheimer, which was not only the beginning of the portmanteau, but it's also the first one that I saw. Like Peter Pan and Wendy, I made a video about Barbenheimer, about Barbie and Oppenheimer. And so if you want to see my more detailed thoughts there, then you can go and watch them. But I really enjoyed Barbie. I thought it was an interesting and comedic look at gender and in our kind of modern society almost, and how that interacts with market-driven, economic-driven, commodified version of gender under capitalism, using Barbie's status as a corporate product to suit the narrative. I thought really worked out well. A lot of people have brought up that it doesn't really go in depth into the political issues that it brings up in a way that is amazing. It doesn't really handle everything perfectly, but I feel like that it's clear that the movie wasn't trying to be like a harsh critique necessarily, or like something that's where the main appeal is the political satire. The main goal was just to be kind of an entertaining and funny comedy movie, and I think they achieved that. Its political achievements that it does do, I think it does really well. It definitely does its job, and as a movie and as a series of performances, I think that it absolutely does the best it could do, and it absolutely deserves the success that it got. I don't know if I want to put it in S tier. Like, a part of me doesn't really want to because I had issues with it, but another part of me wants to because I feel like it's just like S tier is like a feeling almost. This isn't a scientific goal. You know what? Sure. Barbie in S tier. Let's just go with it. Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, it was a great movie. Now the other part of that, we have Oppenheimer, the Oppenheimer bomb movie. Again, I have more detailed thoughts in my Barbenheimer video. As far as Nolan works, I really enjoyed this one. As a historical biopic, as a historical fiction, it was told really well. On my second watch of it, at a special Barbenheimer screening, I thought it started to drag a little bit towards the end because I feel like it loses a bit of steam once the bomb is dropped, pun intended. It definitely earns a lot of its 3-hour runtime, if not necessarily like 100% of it. It definitely earns like at least 80 to 90% of it. I thought that the non-temporal kind of storytelling where they tell so many events in and out of order really worked for the story it was going for. If I had one big critique, I would say that it feels weird to talk about Oppenheimer specifically and not really talk as much about his legacy in terms of actual people who were affected rather than the hypothetical billions that would die in a nuclear war. It's a good movie, but it is kind of focused on the white man part of the history, so that kind of is to its detriment. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if Oppenheimer is in S tier. I'm kind of feeling a similar crisis of faith with Oppenheimer as I did with Barbie just now. You know what? It's A tier. It's like high A tier. It's kind of straddling that same line that Barbie was for me, and I feel like Barbie is just pushed a little bit over by its production design, which I'm always a sucker for. I'm getting tired. I think I'm going to take a break for now, but I'm going to come back to it. I had to take a little bit of a break because my voice wasn't doing too well, and also this list is just very long this year, so I have to record multiple sessions, but hopefully we'll just finish it up right here and we'll get right back into it. Up next, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which was a movie that I was looking forward to for a similar reason I was looking forward to Spider-Verse. The animation style looked really interesting. I really like this trend that we're seeing of a mixture of 3D animation with 2D aesthetics and 2D drawings just being like added as texture almost. And it's nice because a lot of people have been calling it like a Spider-Verse style. And while Spider-Verse definitely, I think, started the trend, other movies that are doing this aren't just copying Spider-Verse's style. Like Puss in Boots last year had more of a storybook aesthetic, Spider-Verse has a comic aesthetic, and this one has more of an aesthetic of like a teenager's notebook doodles in a way. And that was really appropriate for the theme they're going for because they were also trying to make it so that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were actually teenagers, played by teenagers, or at least most of them were teenagers in that age range. They're like, the actors are all my age. And so that was another thing that really stood out to me, is that this movie felt like it was about kids my age. I think that's going to be interesting to see how this ages because a lot of it are kind of timely references and timely slang, so it'll definitely be like a reminiscent of the 2010s, 2020s. I think it works more to, rather than date it, it's more makes it a time capsule almost. So probably that's gonna be another A tier, I'd say. Blue Beetle was the DC movie that deserved to actually get attention this year, and arguably got the least amount of attention, because not only did it do terribly at the box office like The Flash did, it also just didn't have much cultural impact outside of, you know, the usual people who complain about any kind of diverse superhero existing. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't like in a particularly groundbreaking movie by any means, and the best way to put it is that if you've seen like any superhero origin movie, like if you've seen Iron Man, if you've seen Spider-Man, pretty much seen Blue Beetle, but it does that in the best way that it can. It's like one of the best examples of a superhero origin story. It has a very unique cultural flavor that I think really adds to it, and it's clear that it meant a lot of people who the culture was for. A lot of Hispanic and Latino culture was very represented in a way that I haven't seen before personally in like a mainstream American superhero movie. So it's cool to see that. From what I could tell, people who were members of those communities were very big fans of it. So while I personally did not get a whole lot out of this movie, it's clear that it meant a lot to a lot of people, and for that, I'm willing to give it credit. On my own personal tier list, I'd probably put it in B for Blue Beetle, I suppose. But I understand that for a lot of people who have that cultural connection, it will probably be a lot higher, and I am happy for you. All right, breezing through Bottoms. Now, this one, I think this is one of the most underrated comedies that's come out this year. Bottoms exists in kind of an elevated reality version of current day. It's kind of playing on the tropes of like 80s high school movies, but also very much taking place in the modern day and kind of having this weird mixture together that really works in my opinion, and its characters are just so ridiculous in the best way possible. I don't really have a lot to say else about this movie. It's so fun. It was such a great time. I enjoyed myself so much with this one. I don't know if it's gonna be quite S tier, but I would say it's a high A tier. A Haunting in Venice. Now, I have not seen the other two Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie movies all the way through, but from what I have seen of them and what I've heard of the criticism of them is that they've taken these very well-established stories and try to do something kind of different that doesn't really work. So it's interesting that they took this story, A Haunting in Venice, which is not actually the original title of the story. The original title is Halloween Party, but they did something completely different from what was in the book, from my understanding. And they just made it kind of a straight up Agatha Christie horror movie. And for me, I thought that worked a lot better than what I had seen in the other two movies. So it seems like it's probably the best of the three, but that's from my completely uninformed opinion. So take that with a grain of salt. The mystery was decent, and I felt like it was well set up, especially since it was apparently fairly original compared to the book. I love the aesthetic. I love the horror theming it was going for. It didn't really quite work for me in every aspect. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was just something about like the different elements didn't really gel together as well as I hoped they would have. And I felt that the story, while interesting, was a bit middle of the road. So I'll probably put A Haunting in Venice in B tier as well. After that, we have Dumb Money, the biopic movie that was about the 2021 GameStop crash. You'll probably remember the like meme Wall Street Bets things. I remember when this was happening. This is interesting for me because it's a point where I've realized I think this is one of the first movies I've seen that was about an event that I remember happening. It was a kind of interesting perspective to feel that. As far as an actual movie, it was fun, kind of. Definitely felt like a snapshot of the time period, but it did feel like it was taking a lot of liberties with what information they had and with what the story they could tell. It felt a little bit like it was rewriting history a little bit to be kind of in the defense of the Wall Street bettors who were working towards it and how much of an actual victory it was. Because what I remember about this event was afterwards the huge boost in like stock and crypto scams. I felt like that reality wasn't really represented in this movie all that much. But it does have a kind of stick it to the man, power to the people kind of feel to it, which as a movie, I think that it works decently. I don't know if I'd watch this movie again, but I did think it was a fun little venture into that time period. Definitely did give me the vibes of The Social Network, though obviously not nearly as good as The Social Network. So if it gave you that vibes at all from the trailer, then yeah, I would recommend it on that basis. I think it's probably like it's like a high B, low A. I know these two tiers are getting a little crowded. I'll probably put it in B tier. Now we have a bunch of the Wes Anderson specials. At the end of October, Wes Anderson released 4 short film specials to Netflix, all of varying quality. And the first one he released was the longest one, which was called The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I think this is my favorite of the 4. The way that these specials were built was that they were meant to kind of invoke the feeling of a theater production and also capture the whimsy of a certain bunch of Roald Dahl stories. And I felt like that this one was the best example of that because it kind of perfectly captured that classic Roald Dahl whimsy minus the horrific anti-Semitism. But this one has a nice charm to it that I think it's the special that benefits the most from the Wes Anderson charm of things. And it's just a very enjoyable watch. So I probably put that as like a higher A tier, just because it's very simple. It's a simple movie, but it's well done in its simplicity. I don't know if I feel the same about the next special, which was the Swan, which was a lot shorter, and I felt like kind of fell flat. I know that a lot of people have very different opinions about these specials, but this one was one that I thought didn't really justify its existence nearly as well as The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. And honestly, it is probably my least favorite of the 4. It kind of has a thing of like the Wes Anderson-ness of this one didn't really fit with the story being told, I thought, and also just the story didn't really grab out and get you the way that the other ones did. Maybe that's just me. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of this one. Probably like a C. Taking a break from Wes Anderson for a moment, we have Totally Killer, which is basically just pitched as like Halloween meets Happy Death Day meets like Back to the Future. I don't know, it was fine. It kind of felt like a Disney Channel original movie, but with, you know, they could like swear and have sex jokes and stuff like that. It kind of felt like that kind of vibe. So if that's your thing, I definitely recommend it. It's not 100% my thing. I kind of have to be in the right mood for a Disney Channel original movie type vibe of movie. And I feel like that the more mature elements kind of clashed with the tone a little bit that they were going for. It's not terrible. I feel like that I would definitely rewatch this with someone just for the fun of it. And I did have fun watching it, but I didn't think it was an excellent movie or anything. Probably that's gonna be in C tier. Probably high C tier, but still C tier as well. Back to Wes Anderson, we have the third short, which was The Ratcatcher. It wasn't my favorite, but I felt like it was a lot more effective than the Swan at its horror vibe it was going for. It's in a similar camp as the Swan, but it has a much more of a dash of like that really unsettling horror that only Roald Dahl could do sometimes. It's interesting because it just makes me want to see a Wes Anderson horror movie. I want to see what he would do with the horror setting and see if we could like get more of this in like a longer runtime with more development. It is better than the Swan though, so probably I'll put it in like a B tier. Taking another break from Wes Anderson, we have The Creator. The Creator is something that I found really interesting because it's created by the guy who directed the 2014 Godzilla reboot and who also directed Rogue One, which is, I think, the best Star Wars movie. That's my hot take. You can leave your opinions on that in the comments below, but I defend that take in this hour-long video about the Star Wars movies, so if you see my reasoning there. But I feel like that Garth Ennis has a talent for creating fantastical but also grounded imagery in movies, and I feel like this was a very good example of that. They took the idea of like artificial intelligence and robots and all this kind of not too distant but still futuristic tech and putting it into a real world in a way that kind of feels like it's a part of the real world, almost uncomfortably real in some places. The script itself isn't very strong though. The performances are all right for the most part, but I also felt like the messaging was a little bit tone deaf in terms of banking off of what seemed to be like real life refugee crises with AI, and it kind of feels weird to see and Be Nice to AI's actually story nowadays with the cultural context of what's going on with AI. As a visual spectacle, I absolutely enjoyed watching all the stuff that was on screen in front of me, so I'm going to give it points for that. I'm probably going to be in a similar boat to Totally Killer, high C tier. And now we have the final Wes Anderson special, which was Poison, which I think was the second best because it thematically had a much stronger theme, I guess, than the other two previously. Not quite as strong as Henry Sugar, but Henry Sugar I think is just the best of all these worlds. Honestly, if it was just Henry Sugar, it probably would have been satisfied. But Poison works as an effective short little bottle story in a way that like the Ratcatcher and the Swan don't quite. It has very few elements into it, and it uses those few elements very well. I'll probably put it in high A tier. It's above the Ratcatcher by a little bit, but not quite beating out Henry Sugar. All right, remember when I said that I was a theater kid earlier about theater camp? Now I get to prove it. Nerdy Prudes Must Die, which was the latest Star Kid theatrical special that was filmed and released on YouTube. This had a similar kind of feel to Bottoms for me in terms of the mixing of like 80s high school stereotypes with like modern day culture, though this one leaned much more heavily on the 80s culture. Like it's called Nerdy Prudes Must Die. It leans on that kind of stereotype, but also invokes cheesy horror of the time of the 80s. So it's an interesting melding mixture of the two. And all on stage as well. The songs were pretty catchy for what I remember, but I only watched once and the songs were not available on Spotify or anything, so I wasn't able to go back and listen to the soundtrack as much as I normally would like to. I don't know if this like stood out to me as much as their other play, which was called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, but it was definitely a very fun experience. I keep using fun a lot. Fun is becoming very overused in this video, but I just like having fun with movies, so I think that's probably why so much of it gets there. Nerdy Prudes Must Die, I would definitely recommend to theater people who are interested in like theatrical horror. If you're not, you might not click with it as much, but for me, I had a great time, so that's probably an A tier. Five Nights at Freddy's movie. This movie has been in development hell since like 2014, and it finally came out this year to a resounding If you're not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, you won't really get a whole lot out of this. Though, to be fair, I did see it with my girlfriend who had like no previous interest in Five Nights at Freddy's and she enjoyed herself, so who knows there. But it felt like, to me, it kind of felt like a movie that wasn't very well constructed necessarily. It was just fine, but I really enjoyed myself because it had so many references to this media property that I've been consuming since I was a young child, which is kind of unsettling. So taking that into account, normally I would probably rank it like D or C tier, but because of my own personal enjoyment, it's gonna be in the B tier. Interestingly enough, this next movie came out on the same day, but I didn't see it until towards the end of the year, so they're very divorced in my mind. It's also weird because it's very much a Christmas movie. The Holdovers, undeniably a Christmassy, wintry movie, so I don't know why they released it before Halloween, but this was great. The part of me that loves seeing like capsules or homages to different aesthetics at different time periods really loved the fact that they were stylizing this movie like it came out in the 70s. Because when I saw the trailer, I thought it was from the 70s, that was just some kind of theater re-release that they were doing. But no, it's a new movie. I had so much fun with this one. It kind of took a little while to get started for me, but once it really gets going, it really just captures you with its spirit and with its heart and how much of an emotional connection the movie is trying to forge between these two characters and succeeds with forging these two characters. By the end, I was like pretty much in tears almost. Definitely like something I'll be rewatching every holiday season. I honestly probably think that that's an S tier. It's not a perfect movie, but it's close enough that I just don't feel comfortable rating it any lower than that. Last Marvel thing of the year, and interestingly enough, it's The Marvels. The Marvels is, it's kind of in a weird place for me. Similarly to Quantumania, I felt like it kind of got a little bit more shit than it deserved. Quantumania I feel gets a lot of the shit that it should deserve, but The Marvels just felt like it was, culturally, it was just used as like a scapegoat for people who obviously like don't like Captain Marvel because Mo woke or whatever, but more so just people who are like upset with Disney and with Marvel at the time, and pretty valid reasons. There's a lot of valid reasons to be upset at Disney and Marvel, but I felt like this movie specifically didn't really deserve a lot of that. It's not an amazing movie or anything, but I thought it was better than the first Captain Marvel movie, and it's kind of made me sad to see it be ranked as like the lowest opening weekend of a Marvel movie ever, when there's definitely worse Marvel movies out there. Overall, I guess I'm not too sad. I'm not too attached to this movie. It's just fine. It's easily the best part of it is the chemistry between the three main leads. There's a great dynamic between those three, and I felt like you really get to see Iman Vellani's absolute powerhouse of positivity, and you also get to see Brie Larson flexing her acting muscles in a way that she didn't really get to in the other movies where she plays this character. Like, those two in particular were what stood out to me. I don't know, it has a reference to the musical Cats, which I really got a kick out of, and I haven't seen other people mention. I feel like that it's a movie that's, I wish, didn't get treated the way it did, but at the same time, I don't really have a lot of investment in it because it's just fine. It's just fine. I would say it's like a mid B tier, like middle of B tier pretty much. Leo, the Adam Sandler lizard movie that people were making a big deal of because it was doing better critically than Wish. It's kind of hard for me to say, but there are not a lot of movies where I will say that the music is the worst part, but they somehow did it. This movie did not need to be a musical at all. All of the songs are pretty terrible. And it sucks because the movie, its like story it's telling is decent, it's fine. Like, I enjoyed it well enough, but then like every time that they would start singing, I'd be like, oh my god, it's sad because the songs bring it down so much for me, for my enjoyment, because it makes like that every time I remember it, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch that again. But I might want to rewatch it if it was just the story being told, because it's like half decent. It's like cute enough. We put it on in the background as like background noise while we were working on a puzzle, my mom and I. Normally, I would say without the songs, it'd probably be a C or B tier, but I feel like the songs bring it down to like a D tier. Like, it takes a lot for me to say that the songs are bad, you know? Normally, I don't even admit that. The Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm someone who really likes the Hunger Games books. I wasn't a huge fan of the movies. When I saw that there was a prequel book, I have been meaning to read it for a long time. I've been meaning to get around to it, but I just couldn't find the time to do so. And by the time I found the time to do so, the movie was out. So I just watched the movie. And I liked the movie. I felt like it captured the spirit of the books a lot more than any of the Jennifer Lawrence movies, but it kind of felt a little bit off-centered. Like, the first hour and a half of this movie, it's a 2.5-hour movie, first hour and a half of this movie felt really, really, really good. But then, like, after that, there's another hour that feels fine, but it feels kind of tacked on at the end almost. It feels like kind of two movies were put together, which makes sense, that I would imagine, because the book is huge and it's probably split into like 2 parts. But I feel like this could have been something that they might have wanted to just like do 2 movies of rather than one long one, but I can understand why they didn't want to do that, because they're worried that might pull a Divergent and like make a part 1, but then the part 2 never happens because the first one flops. I don't know how this movie did at the box office, so they might have been able to get one, but the songs in this one though were great. I love this, like, movie was almost single-handedly a musical purely because of Rachel Zegler's character. I'll probably put this one, honestly, probably an A tier. Lower A tier, like almost B tier, but stands on its own well enough for me to have enjoyed myself watching it. I'll definitely probably check it out again in the future. I'd be willing to rewatch it, and especially if after reading the book. And now we have Godzilla Minus One. Okay. This movie just came out of nowhere for me. I'm sure people were talking about it before, but I just like heard people, like, for me, it just pretty much didn't exist. And then one day and then the next day, people were raving about how amazing it was. And so I felt like, as someone who has been a fan of Godzilla since I was pretty young, I had to check this out. And now I think it's my favorite Godzilla movie ever. It's so good. Part of that is because the human story that it has is really, really, really strong. Like, I would have been fine just watching this movie without the Godzilla stuff, just because it works that well. But the Godzilla stuff is also really well done. It's an homage to the original movie, but it still works to make Godzilla feel kind of terrifying in a modern context, even though it is a period piece. It takes place after World War II. And there's a possibility we'll be getting a sequel, which I'm excited for. Hopefully they aren't overworking their VFX workers, but they probably are, because, you know, this movie says it has a budget of $15 million, and I just don't see how you can get that with a movie that looks this good without doing some kind of overtime crunch stuff, which isn't great. But the movie itself was so effective and so well done. I have to give it an S tier. It feels wrong to give it anything else. All right, in the final 4, we're rounding out December. Merry Little Batman. It's like a little cute little animated, like very kiddie kind of movie about Batman's son trying to be Batman at Christmas. I don't know. Like if you have kids that like Batman and you want to watch a Christmas movie that is about Batman, this would be great for them, but it's not really, doesn't really give you a lot if you're not a young kid. I watched the trailer, I thought it'd be more of like a family movie, but it is really more just a kind of a kid movie, which is, you know, fine, but it just isn't for me. So that's like a B tier. It's kind of fine. Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron. I watched this movie and it reminded me very strongly of Spirited Away. I won't say it's a masterpiece necessarily because I didn't really quite feel like I get it, but I've always kind of felt like Studio Ghibli movies are movies that are more experiences than they are stories a lot of the time. It's mostly just a reason to watch some really well done animation and some really wacky, interesting stuff that comes from Miyazaki's imagination. Though it does have some real world stuff like thrown in there, some very autobiographical stuff, I'd imagine. Yeah, that one will be an A tier. It's like high A tier just because like existing in the same world as Ghibli movies is kind of hard to do without feeling like you're just seeing something that shouldn't exist for us mortals to see, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I felt like the script was a little all over the place, so that kind of brings it down for me. Chicken Run 2, Dawn of the Nugget. It was interesting to see because a lot of people seemed to really not like it or thought it was weird. I've had a lot of fun with this one. It felt like a different direction to be taking, like the Chicken Run movie. If you've seen the original Chicken Run movie, it's kind of like The Great Escape, but with turkeys. Or chickens. But it worked for this. And what they did with this one, I thought was like a good remixing of ideas with throwing some new ideas in there and not just redoing the original Chicken Run again, but it still kept the same spirit, if that makes sense. I won't say it's as good as the original, but I will say it does get kind of close. I'm gonna say like high B tier, low A tier, high B tier. And for our last movie of the year, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Oh my god, this movie sucks. I'm not sure what I was expecting going into it, but it just, someone could write an essay, not me, because I kind of want to stop thinking about it, but someone could write an essay about why this movie does not work. Part of it is because it feels so derivative. Like it feels like all parts of it are either from Star Wars, from Dune, from some other space epic that has done it better, except for the ideas that are original, that just feel like Zack Snyder looking at like A New Hope and saying like, oh yeah, this scene is cool, but what it could really use is some more groping, or some more violence, or some more grime. Like I can't even say this movie looks good, because it kind of looks alright in the beginning, but then it just becomes a general gray mess. And all the fight scenes are so like they take so long because they're all like 50 to 90% slow-mo. That works for some people. It does not work for me. I just don't think there are any real redeeming qualities about this movie that I can see. Like, I'm glad Zack Snyder gets to do what he wants, but why must he force us to bear witness to it, if that makes sense? And I'm sure that the 3.5-hour director's cut is probably a little bit better, but it's not better enough for me to want to rewatch this movie in any kind of capacity. So definitely an F tier. But alright, that's my list. My 2023 movie tier list. Here's the list for you to screenshot and get mad at my various rankings. What are your thoughts? What were your best movies of the year? What were your worst movies of the year? What do you think about my list? What do you think about movies that I missed that I should check out this year? What movies are you looking forward to in 2024? Let me know all of that. I'll be very keen to see what people are thinking in the comments. Hi everyone, Editing TSD here. I didn't realize while recording this, but the tier list video is going to be my last video for a while I work on my show. I've had a really great time doing this, and I will be back as soon as possible, but I just wanted to let you know that that's where I'm gonna be. I will be posting about the show that I'm working on more on this channel. I'll be posting on my various social medias. So I won't be gone, but I'll be taking a break. And I just wanted to thank all of you for sticking around for that journey. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.